Personnel, Health, and Human Services Committee. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCormick,
Mr. McCormick is excused by the chair.
Mr. Beggs,
Here.
Mr. Hardy,
Here.
Mr. Erickson,
Here.
and Mr. Walker.
Here.
Minutes from March 13, 2025.
Move to approve, Walker.
I'll support. Moved by Walker, supported by Beggs. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Would there be any changes to this morning's agenda? Would there be any changes to this morning's agenda? Hearing none, we'll seek approval for the agenda as written.
I'll make that motion, Hardy.
Support, Walker.
Moved by Hardy, supported by Walker. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Would there be any public comments? Hearing none. Kevin Hughes, our health officer from District 10.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Kevin.
You have copies of our annual report to kind of share with you. I'll cover just some brief updates, and then on the inside of that report, you're going to see a data snapshot for Oceana County. We did just complete our community health needs assessment, and I have Chelsea Rostow, one of our epidemiologists, along, and so she'll kind of provide a little bit of information on that, and we'll open it up for questions that you might have. So, just some update topics. I know in the past have gotten questions on the Adolescent Health Center that operates at Shelby High, and so for this current fiscal year so far, so from October through March 31st, that center has seen a total of 248 visits for medical problems and 360 for mental health related issues with our counselor. In Hart, Hart Public Schools, we operate what's referred to as a wellness center, so it just contains a behavioral health component to there. We've seen 371 visits for behavioral health services there, and then in Pentwater, we also operate a wellness type program that's at 222 behavioral health visits associated with that site. Agency-wide, big picture in 2024, we did update our strategic plan and are continuing to move forward that for the agency. We did complete, as I said, our community health needs assessment. It's actually a 31 county community health needs assessment called the My Thrive Project, split into different regions. For our leadership group, which would be all of our senior administration, directors, managers, and supervisors, we did engage in a year-long process that was titled a Leadership Energizer to try to better prepare those individuals to deal with the issues that they encounter, as also kind of in preparation for some succession planning that we are continuing to do within the agency. We did, at last month's board meeting, we had our audit presentation. The audit was very favorable for the health department. We updated our core values, and then we also completed last June our every 3 years we go through state accreditation, and so the health department did complete its accreditation visit or process last June and passed that. Actually, at our April meeting, someone from MDHHS will be attending to present our accreditation certificates to us. Other than that, we're kind of continuing to monitor avian influenza issues out there, measles, pertussis, any of the other communicable diseases that are kind of popping up out there on a pretty regular basis sometimes. The annual report itself is constructed pretty much the same way that it has been in the past. The theme this year is health behind the scenes, and it really kind of piggybacks off of a media campaign that MDHHS, with the support of MELF, has put in place, really trying to instill some of that support back in local public health that was lost over the pandemic. It's really focusing in on the fact that your public health workforce really are individuals that reside in your community. They could be your family members, they could be your friends. They are in the community, and so they do have a vested interest in working to keep the community safe and healthy. And so that's really kind of the theme of our report. Starts off on, with a letter from Dr. Morris, our medical director, and myself. Then you get into more of just a review of the mission, vision, values for the agency, kind of a 2024 snapshot on page 3. We've included some stories from the field on page 4, some information on our core values that we updated. This was a staff process to go through and do that. Some updates on administrative services and kind of a breakdown of where revenues and expenses fall. As I said, we did update our strategic plan, and so that is included in there. And then starting on page 8, this is where everybody likes to go. This is where all the data by county is located, so everybody will kind of look at that and compare themselves to where they fall in comparison to the other 9 counties in our jurisdiction. Overall, for 2024, the health department ended the year in a very good position as we moved into fiscal year 25. Obviously, you guys know what are happening at the federal level. We're kind of experiencing some of those same things on our end. We've had some funding that we've been notified is going to be cut, and so we will be making adjustments internally with staffing. Unfortunately, that is the vast majority of changes that we will be making will be in the staffing area. That's 90% of our costs are associated with personnel, and so we'll be right sizing based on what is being cut and what we're getting for funding, and it'll most likely be a phased-in approach as we continue to go through the rest of this year. So included in your packet, as I said, is that data snapshot. So I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea, let her go through that, and then I'll answer any questions that you might have, or try to answer your questions.
Morning, everyone. Thanks
Morning.
for having me. I apologize if my voice goes in and out a little bit between allergies and had a laryngitis all last week. But as Kevin said, I'm presenting the MyThrive data, which is, some of it is summarized here in that snapshot. This is a highlight of the areas that were prioritized. So as Kevin was saying, this is a regional collaborative between the northern 31 lower peninsula counties. It's split up into 3 regions, and each one of those regions, which we have DSG 10 counties in all 3 regions, do their own prioritization events. That involves showing the data to community members and getting their input on what they perceive to be highest priority in focusing our efforts to improve health in those areas. So you'll see for Oceana County and the region that Oceana's in, they selected mental health, access to care, and obesity were their 3 priority areas based on looking at the data and community input. So some of the things I'd like to highlight on there, in mental health, you'll see the ratio of residents to mental health providers. This is something that most of Michigan, especially rural northern Michigan, struggles with, is a shortage of mental health providers. So that ratio is showing that for every 1 mental health provider in Oceana County, there's 2,680 residents. So that is pretty high burden for the mental health providers to carry to provide mental health resources to the residents of the county. In Michigan, the ratio on average is 1 to 320, so it's a pretty significant difference. But again, the Michigan number is an average of all counties in Michigan. Oceana, we're just looking at Oceana, smaller population, but also fewer mental health providers that are accessible.
Quick question for you.
Go ahead.
What a mental health provider, what categorizes somebody as that?
So it could be any professional, like in a hospital or a private practice that is providing mental health services, therapy, substance use services, those kinds of things.
Okay. So clergy probably is not included in that
Clergy
number.
would not be.
Okay.
Right. I think the rest under mental health indicators, we include substance use or especially opioid related overdose mortality or deaths is something we watch pretty closely. Oceana has a pretty good rate compared to Michigan, or it's lower than the Michigan average, which is fairly good for the northern counties which struggle with substance use more. Suicide is another thing we track there, child abuse and neglect, depression rates, and then on our behavioral risk factor surveillance system, they ask about poor mental health. And that is defined as having 14 or more days in 1 month where somebody is reporting having poor mental health. And that is a self-report. It's very comparable to the Michigan average, but those are things that we keep an eye on when we're talking about mental health. Access to care, we have another ratio for primary care providers, so your family doctors, your the doctors you go to get your physical every year or your checkup once a year. We have about 1 provider to every 2,060 residents in Oceana County. Similarly for dentists, it's 1 dentist to every 2,980. This is especially a problem across northern Michigan, that we see a lack of dentists. People who are uninsured under the age of 65, we see 6.1%, which is slightly higher than the Michigan average. And the reason we look at those under 65 is we don't want to include, or we're not including anyone on Medicare. Routine checkups, so the percent of people who have received a routine annual checkup, 78.8%, again, pretty close to the Michigan average, which is what we like to see. Medicaid paid births are in there. So this is a fairly high rate across all of DSU 10, and it's the percent of births, live births, that are paid for through Medicaid. And then also looking at homes without broadband internet. So in Oceana County, 18.7% of households do not have broadband internet at home. And then lastly, we have obesity indicators. There are more things we look at with obesity. With obesity, it's very connected to many of the things that we see on this list. And there is a much larger set of data that we've collected through MyThrive, and that is summarized in our chart books. So I'm in the process of updating the chart books. So this is compared to a 2-page document, this is an 18-page document that compares Oceana County to the DSU 10 region and also Michigan. So it gives you a little bit more in-depth information. But with obesity here, we're looking at people ever told that they have diabetes, heart disease, or that report they live a sedentary life, or by sedentary life, that is someone who does not do physical activity such as walking intentionally less than 120 minutes a week. And then on the reverse side of this page, this is our community data. So a large part of MyThrive, we put a lot of work into involving community members and getting their input, and this is part of how we do the prioritization. So on the top, we use a technique called photo voice, and this is a technique where we ask community members to take a picture of something in their environment and then tell us what it means to them in regards to their health or their well-being. So here we can see the Oceana County Council on Aging having congregate meals served Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. And having home-cooked meals served by volunteers. So this was a picture kind of sent in by an Oceana County community member. And then we take that information and we look for patterns, because we have all these people submitting information, and we look for patterns in the information. And we were pulling out the patterns of mental health and access to care, safety, and well-being. So I think for the Council on Aging, you can definitely see for seniors, that is a great resource for them to have to promote their well-being. One of the large issues we see in our senior population is social isolation and not having those social connections, and that definitely takes a toll on mental health. And so this is just one of those things in Oceana County that protects against that, or is a resource that we have for seniors to protect against social isolation. On the right side, we have a picture of the ongoing renovation of Getty Park near the schools that is providing more safe areas for people in the community to be outside, get exercise, reduce that amount of sedentary life. We find all over the U.S. your access to outdoor green spaces has a really big impact on your physical activity levels. On the bottom half of page 2, it talks about the community survey. So this was another digital survey that we put out to Oceana County community members, and we're asking them, you know, what are your top 3 factors that you believe contribute to a thriving community? And what are your top 3 issues that prevent the community from thriving? So they identified positive factors as high quality medical care, access to general medical care, and healthy food. And then their top 3 issues that are preventing the community from thriving is not having enough options for transportation, not enough mental health resources, and lack of good mental health resources. So I think we can see the correlation between our data and our community input, and that's really why we have such a strong focus on the community input, because the data is only telling us one side of the story, and I'm biased because I'm a data person, but we need that community input to put the context around the numbers and make sure that we are focusing on the areas that the community members want addressed first. And then the last 2 graphs there, we asked healthcare providers what they believe as 3 factors for contributing to a thriving community or preventing the community from thriving. And they also mentioned mental health care, access to care, healthy food, and then accessibility for people with disabilities. 3 issues impacting or preventing the community from thriving is not enough mental health care, not enough options for transportation, and access to general medical care. And that is most of what I have to show you guys today. Do you have any questions? Health data or anything?
No, if I may, you mentioned who you mailed this survey out to. Who was that?
So there's I don't know exactly how, my coworker, another epidemiologist, was the one who did the methods and was distributing. She's currently analyzing the rest of the data and creating the reports for hospitals and everybody, so I'm presenting today. But they do a lot of recruitment to get these stories out. There's various different distribution points that they try to find mailing lists or get in contact with providers and have them send it out, posting it different places.
It just seems like an awful small response.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, for the thriving community, you know, the top 3 factors, the 33.3% represents 5 people.
Right. Yeah.
So
So
it's kind of hard to draw
right.
a conclusion.
Yeah, and that's totally valid for sure. And we do look at these and we add it to the data and we add it to the focus groups we hold, and we look at the photo voice and kind of put it all together, and we still find common threads among all of it. But I do small sample sizes in these studies is typically an issue in our northern counties. It is hard to get people to participate because they're like, why do we have to take another survey? And that's why I do like to come here and talk about the data, so I can, like, hey, those surveys aren't just going nowhere, they're not disappearing. We really use them to, you know, provide you the services that the community wants.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Right, thanks, Chelsea.
Thanks, Kevin.
So one other
Thank you.
update to that Chelsea's presentation kind of jogged my memory. Back in fiscal year 23, you had approved for us to put a Narcan vending machine outside of our health department building, and so from the starting point until the end of March, there were 545 containers of Narcan that were accessed and taken from that vending machine. So I want to provide that update to the board also. Questions that you may have on the health department that hopefully I can answer, or if not, get back with you.
A couple things I noticed under the employees, it says 37 new employees in 2024. Out of what, 242. I assume the 242 includes the 37 new employees. So that's a lot of additional staff. Just was surprised by that number. We heard a lot about with the data and some of your school resources about mental health. but when, in your report, page 3, 8 mandated essentials, so, essentially that's your mission. I don't see mental health as on one of the 8
No,
mandated essentials.
Yep, the adolescent health centers are a separate project that is offered up through both MDHHS and the Michigan Primary Care Association. So they're grant opportunities that are made available. If the schools in our area are interested in pursuing those, we will work with them to put those centers in place. If they're not, it's not something that we try to force on them.
Sure.
It's really their support to
Yeah.
do that.
I just wonder, and we're presented with data, and the data showing mental health is a concern. I just wonder, is that, we have CMH, community mental health, and we have the health department. I just wonder if there's mission drift with the health department going into this mental health arena when we already have an entity that provides that care and expertise, arguably, but that's a personal thing. Anyway, duplications of services is a large demand on taxpayer dollars, and I just wonder if it's wise to.
Yeah, and that's a question that comes frequently up at our board meetings on that. It's my understanding statutorily, CMH is required to see that severely mentally ill individuals. So it's that mild to moderate population that nobody is really seeing, and that's really kind of the niche that our behavioral health counselors are seeing. So in all of our adolescent health centers, we have agreements and referral processes in place with the local CMH if there is someone who is identified as being better suited to see them. They'll get referred off to those individuals, and then we can deal with just that mild to moderate population.
Okay.
That again, nobody is seeing.
Sure.
Kevin, can you fill everyone in on the schools that we're represented in now with this part?
Let's see. So Wexford County and the Cadillac Area Public Schools, we have an adolescent health center. In Mesick also there are wellness programs that are there. Missaukee County, we have centers in both Lake City Public Schools and McBain Schools. I gave you the sites here in Oceana County. Lake County, we do not have a site, but Baldwin Family Healthcare, the FQHC down there does. Mecosta County, again, Family Healthcare has sites there. Trying to think who else. Crawford County, up in the north, we do have an adolescent health center in that community. Manistee County at Calvin Norma Dixon and Bear Lake Schools, we have sites that we provide services at. I know I'm missing some, but that's
Well covered for 10 counties.
yeah, I think we have 13 or 14 different sites within our 10 county jurisdiction, and like I said, there are some. So Family Healthcare, the FQHC has some sites also, and then Northern Michigan Health Services, the other FQHC, operates, I believe, at Manistee Area Public Schools. They have a site there too.
We had talked about it quite a bit when Michigan State got into mental
Yep.
health. We've got mental health, and we've got
Yep.
the health department's getting into mental health. We've got multifaceted mental health services available everywhere. But we commonly feel that it's going to be mental health takes care of it. But I do know at our school in part of an instance where one young man was walked down the hall to the office, to the mental health office, with thoughts of killing his family. So to have that readily available, it was helpful in that instance. And it's coming more, when you look at 550 Narcans were distributed through this machine here at Oceana County. We had wondered if we'd see very few at all if it were placed outside of town and not in front of the sheriff's office. So we had that issue, but I didn't realize 550 papers. We've got a real mess problem out there.
Can just elaborate on what Mr. Beggs brought up. I used to be on the same page, and I think, Kevin, you realize that. I asked at the board meetings why that was going on. and, and the duplicate of services. I have softened up on that a lot when the West Michigan Community Mental Health Board got their information just recently, that if somebody comes in with a concern for mental health issues, the lead time that it takes for that person to see a counselor in community mental health, I will use the term that the board used on community mental health, is unacceptable. It has to be fixed. And knowing that that's going on, I understand the need for the mild person to enter, just somebody that wants to talk to somebody, because that person at community mental health is not going to be able to see a counselor right now. So it's a gap that's being filled. Sitting on both boards, I see that very, very clearly, and I'm glad now that gap being filled. Not for the person that has severe mental health issues, absolutely not. But that gap for somebody who's looking for somebody to talk to.
One follow-up, I guess, hearing about, cutting funding, looking at, mandated essentials, and I kind of use this term growth tongue in cheek, because I'm a small government guy, 37 new employees in the last year. I hope that as tough decisions are made to rectify cut funding, that the mandated essentials are preserved and peripheral projects are on the chopping block. Homeowners need their permit for their septic system.
Yep.
And a backlog there slows down progress for builders and homeowners alike, and food protection is important. But I guess just as a outsider looking in, I'm not involved on the board and get good reports from the two commissioners that do. But those are tough decisions. But I think mandated essentials are the primary.
Yeah, no, I agree, and those are the primary services that we do try to keep. Again, it depends upon, the funding for our essential services is specified in the public health code as coming 50-50. And so 50% from the locals, whether that be through fees or appropriations or other mechanisms, and then 50% from the state. Last year, the state finally reached its 50-50 cost share amount. Prior to that, it was probably closer to 70-30, 60-40, with the locals having to pick up the higher amount. And so, when there's cuts, when there were cuts, or when that funding was level, so that was 21 years it took us to get to the 50-50 cost share. Sometimes we were our own worst enemy, because we would still continue to be able to provide those services as we move forward. Moving forward this time, now, with everything that's going on with it, I'm not sure if we are going to get state cuts on top of what we're seeing from the federal level, that we're going to be able to do that. And so even our mandated services may suffer to some extent. I mean, funding gets cut, but our minimum program requirements and what we're held to do not change. We still have to meet those. But yes, if at all possible, we will preserve our mandated or required services.
One other thing that we saw at the board meeting that would be an interesting statistic when you're concerned about, with the concern about new employees, and I understand, I have that same concern also, but is the longevity of the employees we have in District 10 Health Department. We're one of our people in accounting, we're just about ready to lose, and how many years has that person been there?
45, I think.
And Mr. Beggs, there's a lot of long-term employees in District 10 Health Department that are looking at retirement at this time and have been looking at retirement for the last few years. And you're right with what you say about the, that, but there's a lot of that's the other part of the equation that's coming out.
Sure.
Well,
we might even in the next 5 years be looking for a new director of District 10 from you know, he's had a lot of longevity too.
Well, and I've got to add that we've re-upped with Kevin, and Kevin's 10 counties is the largest geographical department in Michigan, and Dr. Moore, our medical director, she oversees 3 different health departments. So we've already kind of been doing that, but 37 employees over 10 counties is 3.7. And if we have 37 time out and retire here in the next year or so, it's a $30 million budget. It's a big animal.
Yeah, with 37, is the 37 new employees, is that new additional full-time?
No, they're replacement, those are generally
So-
replacement positions that we have. And so when you look at we're over 50% of our employees have less than 5 years of experience with public health. So we've lost a lot of institutional knowledge over the past years, and our challenge is to try to get these new people up to speed so that they're able to, operate and function and address the issues that are in.
I was thinking 37 were new positions.
Nope.
That'd be a 20% growth in
Yeah,
manpower.
no, it's really replacement positions.
Okay. That's better.
Yeah,
Well, and our environmental health is one of our biggest challenges in these 10 counties with the septic code that's been floated about. And filling that position, you know, once Mark Hill left, we lost 40 years of institutional knowledge with Mark Hill, and now we're breaking in new guys that we're stealing from other counties, just to keep alive. But we're underrepresented in the environmental health problem right now to get those permits made.
other questions that you have for me?
I just like to compliment you, that's all.
Okay, fine. I'll take that.
No, he runs a wonderful meeting, Kevin does a fine job, and he has a good staff. And,
Could, on the lighter side, could each one of us imagine sitting in front of a group of 20 county commissioners and keeping the meeting moving forward and on tap?
It's a very good board.
How big's this gavel?
Kevin does a very, very good job at that.
And we've had good chairs, we've really had
Mhm.
some very good chairs that have been extremely active in MAC and going to Lansing when necessary.
It's a very good board. Some of my peers ask me the same question. How do you get anything done with the 20-member board? And it's most of the decisions, and when I say most, 99.9% of the decisions the board makes are unanimous decisions.
Maybe it's because we have 2 attorneys on that board.
Well,
Maybe not.
we'll see how that plays out over the course of the year.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kevin.
All right. If you have any other questions, let me know, or let Bob and Paul know, and I'll get you the answers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. Miss Lisa Nagel, Oceana County Council on Aging. It's time for our amendment for the MDOT.
Yeah, so, good morning.
Good morning.
There has been, a few changes with the MDOT master agreement. Everything has pretty much been implemented over the last 2 or 3 years. It's just they're finally getting the documentation in a written formal form. And it does extend it through the 26th fiscal year. So I'm just asking that you, allow Mr. Walker to sign that agreement for us to continue our services. This is for the bus service for seniors and the disabled throughout the county. And just to touch a little bit on what District 10 said, I just want to let you know that our trips from 23 to 24 increased 8.5%. And then in the first quarter of this year, it has increased another 4.5%. So transportation for the elderly and disabled and some of the general population has dramatically increased, and we need to start looking at that a little bit deeper, I feel.
Yeah, that came out in this report.
So that's it. You guys have any questions for me, or?
Any questions for Lisa? Brought Stephanie with you too, so.
Any questions, let us know.
Thank you.
This is one of those pass-throughs that are easy for us. That Council on the Aging does all the work and we just agree to be a pass-through agency.
Administrator Biard.
The Board of Commissioners asked that 3 positions for additional, or requests for additional staff be brought back to the board after the first quarter. And, these are the 3 positions that were on there, and, so I'm bringing that back to your attention for consideration.
May I, Mr.?
Yes, sir.
Administrative VR, during the first quarter, have we run into any large financial issues, unexpected things that we have, we talked about not doing this for the first quarter to see how things went financially and everything. I asked that question to you and Mr. Hardy, and who's the chairman of the finance committee. Have you seen anything that, was out of line or was not budgeted that we've run into? And looking into the crystal ball, do you foresee anything, coming up?
That hasn't already been, brought to the board's attention or been placed in the agenda, or in the budget.
If I may,
Yes.
Paul, yeah, my concern, I guess, too, is, the third line on that for the economic development, grant writing purposes, with the current situation on the federal level, and probably going to be on the state level, I don't know if we need to do this at this time.
Yes.
Mr. Hardy, I concur. I don't know that, I think we need to ride this boat for a little while before we see, what's gonna be cut from the state, put somebody out and have somebody lead their job to come to a grant rating position in the county and then find out that all of those grants, or the majority of them, are gonna be cut.
Right.
That's not fair to the individual, and we can't promise anything with that right now.
And I think a multitude of them are on freeze right now. I mean, past years, there's things that were available, but right now I'm not convinced that that's gonna be.
If it's your recommendation that we hold off on that one now, I would 100% concur
It would be
with
my
you.
recommendation
I
until we
would
figure out what's
100%
gonna
concur
happen.
with that.
And I had thought that a case-by-case basis is something that we need to consider. If someone came up with a need and found a grant that was available, there's
But
grant
even at
writers
that, it might be more cost effective to just do a specific
project.
project
Well,
rather than.
There are other units of government in Oceana County that if there's a specific grant, they use an engineering firm or they use a grant rating firm to administer that and do it. And it might be better to pay the administrative fees than to have a full-time employee right now.
And hire a grant writer. Thank you.
Question?
Yes.
So we recently, put into action moving our building department. And, my initial thoughts were this is pretty easy, and then the bills started rolling in for remodel, for furniture, for internet. So that makes me question, at least for, obviously the parks, likely doesn't need an office space, but the treasurer and economic development, where are these people going, and what is the cost going to be to outfit an office for them? Not knowing our situation, maybe there's open desks, I don't know, but that's another question that I would need answered, because there's a significant, at least from what we've done so far, there could be a significant cost to outfit an office.
I think
There's a
Mary
note there
Lou.
about computers.
Question.
Yeah.
So I don't take this decision lightly to ask, for an extra employee. So we've been doing it for 4 years. We've invested a lot of our personal time into the office to keep it going. We're there to make the county money. We're not there to expend, money for the county. So that's why we've been investing our own time in. But right now we're in the situation where we're creating a liability to the county because my current staff has to invest more of their time. And the administrator's office was kind enough to, when Mindy was at a maximum of 40 hours of comp time, and that was during settlement. It's like, we've gotta keep, we've got settlement to finish. You need to override that 40-hour limit. So Mindy's almost approaching 60 hours of comp. When we look at her office, and I've been studying this for a long time, there's really not any place to put anybody. But it would require, when Monica was first hired, we had her sitting in her vault, and we set up an area. I talked to Amy Contreras, and she figured maybe it'd be about $1,200 to set up a workstation in regards to computers. I don't know in regards to, I'd like to have that person out in the office. So it might require having, I think the company was DBI, that when Bob Sylvie was here, we remodeled the office, carpet, new desk, got a nice workstation, works great for us. I don't know if they can create like a smaller workspace to have somebody sit out inside the office. Otherwise it would have to be in the vault. And that would be kind of difficult to do. I'd be willing to move in the vault myself, as long as they keep the heat off in the winter. And they give me some, maybe, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get air conditioning in there, but I've thought about it long and hard. Last year we made 1.9 million in interest and revenue. And that takes time and energy, because we don't let money sit in the cash. You only get 2% there. If you invest it, you're doubling your money plus. When I came here, it was less than 30,000 the county was earning. And we're almost to the point that we're waiting for state treasury to come into play. But state treasury is looking at, where a group of county treasurers put a plan together in regards to accounting functions throughout the state of Michigan, that everybody's doing everything the same way. But part of that is the delinquent tax revolving fund. We have about 5 million sitting in there now. So when I came in the office, we were borrowing money to buy delinquent taxes. And it's like, why are we borrowing money? Started asking questions. So we started building up our delinquent tax revolving fund. Commissioners allowed me to do that. So now we're at 5 million. Our delinquencies probably, it's usually under 4 million. So when you get to that status where you're able to have enough in there and you have a cushion just in case delinquencies go up, then we can start contributing back to the general fund. So up to this time, we haven't really done that. Foreclosure fund's been kind of tied down a little bit, that you can't get into that anymore because of all the claims process and things going on. So yeah, there will be some money spent in regards to, and I would think it would be minimal. $1,200 for a computer station, a desk. I don't know what that's gonna run. I haven't had a chance to look into that, but it's time.
Mary Lou, just a question. You have and I know this space is, it's kind of nice to have because you have a spot for your copier and all your spread out and stuff. Is there a possibility of moving that stuff into the vault area and making a desk area for that person?
We think
there?
about the number of steps.
Yeah,
we're limited
exactly.
in regards to our time,
Yeah.
so we think about the number of steps, and we're still changing that up after Betty retired. And moved some things that were in like her area and moved it to the central area. So what we've designed is that all the employees, you don't have to go into somebody else's work area anymore. Everything that everybody's cross-trained. We never had that before. So everybody's touching the same things on a daily basis, and that workspace allows us to do that. I don't know if that can be moved into the vault area because the outside walls, yeah, I thought about that too, but we've got a lot of tax books in there that people are researching. Old files are coming in. Right. Some of them are downstairs in the supply room or storage area. So I don't know if, I think it could be that it's designed that it's not attached to the wall. So maybe instead of the tables in there, we could move that workspace in so it's, and then we'd have another spot for somebody.
Mr. Erickson? Yeah. Mary Lou, I have said this to you in the past, and I'm gonna say it publicly. I don't think we should expect our elected treasurer to come in and work Saturdays.
Yeah.
But our elected treasurer does come in and work Saturdays to get the job done.
I do.
That's not something that
My
I'm,
days start at 7, and I'm usually out of here by 5:45.
Mary Lou, that's not something I'm proud of, being one of the people that holds the purse strings, that our elected treasurers come in and work Saturday. With that being said, I'm glad that Mr. Beggs brought this up. Can you work out something for a moderate amount of money to have another workstation in your office?
I would think so. I don't know what it cost when Bob hired DBI, but I would think so, yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I can't imagine a desk would be that expensive.
I can't imagine it's gonna be a big expense,
Really,
especially with the modular furniture.
again, I appreciate the question, but that's all I need to hear.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about a physical, a cubby. Do we have square footage? I think we found a cache of furniture not too long ago. Maybe some of it's usable, maybe none of it is. I don't know. That'll be somebody else's decision, but mostly I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to build another cupboard somewhere to shove a person, so.
No, there should be room in the office, just not sure where that would be at this point without maybe somebody coming in looking at the design.
And I read your addendum here, or your, in the board packet, and it just seems very logical to me that you need the extra help.
Thank you.
Yep, so,
And if I didn't put in the time that I did, we would not be meeting our statutory requirements of the office.
Being a financial person yourself, this is something that's necessary.
Yeah, I thought long and hard about it, and I even asked Betty before she left, it's like, Betty, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Or do we need another body from, because she had the longevity, saw what it was to what it is today, and she said, yes, it's time, so.
And I think the office space will work itself out. I mean, I know the computer and stuff, is $1,200 or something for the station.
Well, the revenue that she creates.
I know, that's what I was gonna say.
The vault's
more
been
than
used
makes up
before,
for it.
you know, it's.
Yeah.
the
You
vault's
just have
when I
to
was a
squeeze another
boy.
0.5% out or something.
Am I hearing a concurrence here that we can handle this afternoon?
Yeah,
I think so.
I do remember when I was a boy, the vault was used for office space also, and offices have become much more efficient. And the institutional knowledge that we lost with Betty, you know, I mean, it's hard to make that up, but now that you say everybody's cross-trained.
I tell you, the timing, it was, the way it changed up in the office with employees, where we lost one, and then we reopened it when we got time, and the timing of hiring Monica Otis. So Monica comes to us with 2-year associates in accounting. So an accounting degree is an accounting degree, but she practiced it for 12 years prior to coming here. So she's coming into the office, and we kind of eliminate duties that we don't feel is necessary. So we actually eliminated where, in the past, they always kept a manual general ledger, using Excel spreadsheets and posting all the cash, and it's like, I'm asking the whole time, Betty, do we need to be doing this? We've got general ledger, it's gotta be all in there. And so Monica comes in, and she's like, bank reconcilement is my jam, and she does it every single month. And I asked her the other day, because we got work piling up in the vault. It's like, Monica, do we really need to be doing this anymore? And she said, I don't think so. You know, so we gained two. I mean, Mindy's been great. She's a good partner to me in the office. But bringing in Sam and bringing in Monica, the office is just, everybody gets along, we're producing, we don't come in and get the work done. We just can't get to all of it with the amount of time that we're putting in. So it's time.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary, would you like to say something?
Morning.
Morning, Gary.
The request for a seasonal worker for parks is definitely needed. We've never had an employee or a seasonal worker. I take that back. In 1968, there was one in the budget I found. That goes back quite a while. But with 8 county parks and a budget that's fairly small, we just heard from the District 10 Health staff that the need for green spaces in the county is really important. You mentioned Getty Park. But with our 8 parks, having someone out that's working with our visitors, basically going to, finding ways to work with the Conservation District, finding ways to work with MSU Extension. These are partners that come into our county on a regular basis. And if you were to go out to Gales Pond and Doolittle today, you would see the knee-high naturalists out there. There's 27 of them out there, probably about right now, actually. So, you know, the opportunity to have a seasonal worker is important. I think at this point, with our budget the way it is, we're gonna be spending, you're gonna hear from me next board meeting with the annual report. But long story short, it comes down to, we need to have some help going forward in county parks, some way or another. To address Tim's question about the parks office, we have a great relationship we've built with Kurt out at the airport. We now have a bay that we have equipment in and different odds and ends of things that are county property. Before they were scattered in barns in my backyard or wherever the case. The other thing that Kurt's made available to us is an office. He has a really nice office out there and a large meeting room where pilots come in and check in and out, if you've ever been there. He said we could have an office there without any trouble. It already have internet, I believe, and a phone. If we had the opportunity to have a seasonal employee at some point, that would be a great anchor point. So part of that's solved. The other problem we have is transportation. We need a vehicle that would be go forward. But you know, the larger thing here is we're either going to be in the parks, quote unquote, business, or we're not. And I think that's the thing that has to be considered long term. So with the cuts in mental health, I think it's a great opportunity to put something additional into parks that we can actually have people out there. We have 10 people on our board that are all volunteers, and we've, I think, done a pretty good job over the years with building out new opportunities for our visitors and our citizens. And it does come with some long-term necessary maintenance, if you will.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So this seasonal will be, I'm assuming like a maintenance groundskeeping type position. So you mentioned a vehicle. If we hire a person, but we don't have a vehicle for them to drive around, they're not gonna drive a mower. So I think we need to figure that out if we're going to approve this. It's kind of one package. Is there a trailer that's already in hand attached? So we need a pickup and a trailer if we're gonna be hauling. Is there a mower?
The County Road Commission is cutting 4 of our parks this year. We have contracts with individual, Howard's Lawn Care is cutting Crystal Valley, and additionally he's gonna be working at Black Lake under contract.
Okay.
And we have I think it's called DNS Landscape that cuts Mill Pond because of the distance from the area that we hard to get one guy to do all of that.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, what we're looking at right now is hiring a seasonal employee that would be a contract employee, which I think is the way to go. I talked to an individual who works for the Animal Control Group, and he's left, as you know. And I've been talking to him about hiring him on an hourly basis to go out to the parks, clean tables, just general maintenance, boards that need to be fixed, things of that nature. I think that's a good start. Sure. And we can cover that in our budget as it's set right now. When we get to the end of the year, we're not going to have anything left in the budget, so it's going to be zeroed out pretty good.
So we're essentially looking at a seasonal person that need a vehicle to transport small tools and supplies, not a truck and a trailer and a mower. That sounds like that's covered.
And ideally, long term, it would be nice if we could mow it ourselves. Sure, we had that equipment.
Yep.
That's one other thing. Then you get into the maintenance costs, maintaining a mower.
Right.
With the road commission, they have mechanics. This was a John Deere tractor that small mower that we were given by the Kent County Sheriff's Department. That Pete Lundborg had found, and we went over and picked it up, and we put some money into it with the road commission, and it's still functional. But it's as the mechanic told me the other day, it's kind of on its last legs. So it was old when we got it. Sure, it's now 4 more years older. So, Yeah, so there's some great opportunities to figure out a way. Kurt and I talked a little bit about when he retires and I retire, that maybe the county hires the next airport manager would also have some responsibility with maintenance of the parks. So I'm just thinking out loud. There's a lot to do at the airport. Kurt's always fixing the mower out there, a whole other thing on its own, you know that. So, you know, it's not something that doesn't, it's idle. We think about these things and we try to figure out what's the best way to go forward. The guy that sits in, or the person that sits in my chair as chairman in the next year, whatever, I don't wanna leave him high and dry, so. Might be you, Tim.
I wouldn't recommend it, but.
You know,
Mr. Walker?
there again, Mr. Beggs brought up some very good points. What I'd like to see is for our next meeting or the meeting after, I don't know why I kept thinking the seasonal employer was going to be cutting grass and stuff. I think we need to first define what that seasonal employee is going to be doing, and then look at what it's going to take for us to facilitate that, and then we can get a rough cost of what it's going to be. And I would caution the board, if we are talking about this being a contract employee, if they have a county vehicle for transportation, we may fall out of them being a contract employee instead of an employee. I can tell you in the construction business, people that are contract employees working for general contractors, if they have a contract vehicle, they are no longer a contract employee. There are some guidelines that are easy to find on that.
And the IRS is very specific about that. I was an independent contractor for many, many years, and people that worked for me were employees.
Sales is a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, but.
Because so was I, but sales is different.
So there's two different things here. One would be a county employee, which would have access to a vehicle, a trailer, what have you. Another would be a contract employee, which would be much like the guys we hire to cut the grass.
But they use their own equipment and their own.
Yep, they do.
That
They
makes
have their
them.
own insurance and they provide all the necessary.
I just think
behind.
if the administrator and Gary could come up with more of what we're actually looking for.
The job description.
So 2 years ago, when I first proposed this to the board in my budget, I sat with Jessica in Tracy's office, and she put together somewhat of a already work idea, plan of work.
Let's look at that then.
It wasn't finished, but it's a document that was started, and it could be easily resurrected and gone forward. So, thank you.
If I may, would this be, this particular funding, would that be for a contract employee? Is what you're thinking?
We're open to whatever, we're open to whatever.
Well, because a contract employee would have his own truck and his own cleaning supplies and whatever.
So our ask originally was to have our budget basically expanded to have a contract employee. That didn't happen, it's okay. So what we're doing this year is we're gonna try to find this contract employee to do some of the services that we think we need. So this is probably premature for this year, but come August, when we start talking about budgets going forward, this is certainly needs to be on the table.
Yes,
absolutely. Thanks, thank you.
So the need is always there, but we can kick it down the road another couple weeks.
All I'm asking is that we define so we know what we're hiring.
Yep. Yeah, you have to have a job description.
Yeah.
Before you leave, for department head reports,
Oh, it is.
I thought I'd save you stuff.
Two things, Planning Commission, on April 24th, we're having Mary Riley from MSU Extension. We have a number of people that have signed up. She's going to be doing a program for 90 minutes on the Open Meetings Act. So any elected official, appointed official, anybody that's interested, they would like to be part of that program, just see the administrator's office, Brittany, and you can sign up for that. There's no cost. It's being covered by our budget on the planning. Finally happened to announce that the cross law is coming off, that the contractor is starting to work now at the Marshville Dam project. We've set a date of June 20th as a grand opening, and we hope at that point to have the parking lot asphalted and all of the walkway in, and also the planting in the marshland will have taken place as well. So lots of good things happening there. And one other thing, kind of caught me off guard. I have my notes in my seat, but that's all right. So, I can come back.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. Any other department head reports? Would there be any department head reports? Hearing none, public comment? Would there be any public comment? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting of Personnel, Health, and Human Services. Mr. Hardy.
Moving forward, let's call to order the Finance Administration Committee. May we have a roll call?
Yeah, read it.
Mr. McCormick,
Mr. McCormick is excused by the chair.
all right. Mr. Beggs,
Here.
Mr. Hardy,
Here.
Mr. Erickson,
Here.
and Mr. Walker.
Here.
I'd ask for approval of the meeting minutes from March 27th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Beggs. Support by Erickson. Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Are there any changes to the agenda? Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I will ask for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support, Walker.
Moved by Erickson, support by Walker. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Is there any public comment at this time for the Finance Administration Committee? Any public comment? All right, moving on. Mr. Edward Vandebreeze, you're up.
Morning, Ed.
All right, so, this is the equalization portion of the meeting, which is the statutory requirements of equalization for accounting. And we'll talk about other statutory after we get through the equalization report. Essentially, and this part will go pretty quick, just to give you, basically let you know where we're at. Our 2025 county equalized value has been established. Everything's been uploaded. Everything was imported from the local units. Everything's been uploaded to the state. The 2024 equalization official report, you have a copy of that the chair and the clerk and myself will sign. That has already been balanced and checked by the state, so I'm comfortable in doing the final approval on that today. We don't have to extend this session. We actually have until the first Monday in May to get this done. We'll be able to conclude it today. Our 2025 equalized value was established as $2,853,731,515. That's up 10.23% over last year. Our taxable value is up 6.92% this year. The taxable value for the county is $1,723,788,766. One thing to keep in mind is that when we equalize these values, we're really not equalizing taxable value, but this taxable value is our raw ad valorem taxable value. When it comes to some of the other duties that we have to perform for, and I'll cover that when we do the overview in determining millage reduction fractions and things like that, they've changed how we do some of those reports. And when we run those reports, we are now excluding veterans exemptions from the millage reduction fractions. So you'll see on the taxable value is less when it comes to preparing millage reduction fractions. Forget the exact number of millions, but we do have several millions of dollars of property that is excluded from paying taxes that are owned by veterans. would like to, I've got some of my staff from my company, mainly assessing, as you know, we're contracted to provide the services. I introduce my vice president, Catherine Wright, and she is my VP. She's also our senior field staff. So her, along with who else is here? I have another field staff that is not here. They're actually down at the National Bowling Tournament down in Baton Rouge. But they're the ones that are out in the field actually visiting the properties to do the study. I have Jan Malmquist, which you may have met. She is our administrative clerk, so she's the one that processes everything that comes through the office and the other work that we'll talk about. And I have Vicki Warner here, and she assists in the equalization office, but she is also the staff that does the office work for our contract with the city of Hart to provide the assessing services. Again, the 4024 is the official equalization report, which we'll sign, and then the rest of the pages are basically just to give you an idea of where we are. And you can see the yearly history on page 1 of 22 shows you how we've increased as far as equalized value and taxable value over the years. And if you notice on that page, our CPI for this year was 3.1%. So that's the inflation rate. The fact that our taxable value went up 6.92% is the reason why you are going to have a millage reduction fraction, because you're statutorily under Headley not allowed to bring in more revenue than what the inflation allows from the previous year. Now, from that increase in the taxable value, some of that is accounted for by new construction, which is called additions to the roll. Those are excluded from the formula when we do the millage reduction fraction. But a lot of this increase in taxable value is due to the transfers of ownership on property, and that's for all classes, so residential, agricultural, commercial, industrial. Any of those properties that saw a transfer of ownership with a taxable value uncapped, a lot of that increase is due to those uncappings. And that uncapping of taxable is what basically gets tampered down by the millage reduction fraction. You're not allowed to collect more revenue due to those uncappings. They do allow you to collect for new construction because it increased the tax base, but it's because there's something new there. You have more to take care of in the county, and so they do allow you to collect additional revenue to cover the additional costs of having more buildings, more houses in the county. The one thing that I did add this year that find it here. And I think somebody asked for it in the past, so I added it. Find it. Page 21 of 22, I added an assessed and taxable value by village. You got excluded. I'll make sure that you get that. Villages are not equalized down. They're part of the townships that they reside in. But I will see that you get that page just so you can see what the equalized value is and the taxable value of in each village. You normally only see the taxable value of the villages when we do the apportionment report and how much taxes they're going to be bringing in. So the other part that I've provided is the L4037 Board of Review Board of Commissioners certification. Because we have no units that have a factor, you're basically certifying the equalized values as I'm presenting to you. We have had to factor some units in the past. This year we have no unit with a factor. Basically what that's saying is that the assessors increased or decreased each class of property based on the study. And we do not have to correct anybody's class of property on the roll. And I did provide you in the report the L4023s. Basically what that's showing you when you look at each unit, each class of property has a starting ratio, and the ending ratio is supposed to be between 49 and 50. So when you look at those reports, that's what you're looking for, is that the beginning ratio is telling the assessor what they need to increase their class to get to 50. But the assessor has the leeway of having their ending value fall between 49 and 50 to comply with the statute, and all of the units did that. Does anybody have any questions about the 4024 specifically, or the equalization? You should have electronic copies of these, but I got some printouts too, in case you want to see these over.
I gave it to him.
I thought it'd be good just to, we've never really gone over all of the things that we do in the equalization department. And with the bid process coming out, I thought it might be a good idea just to let you know what it is we've been doing for the last 3 years of their contract. As I mentioned before, the equalization report is one of the statutory functions of equalization. And the other is apportionment. So I've just got a couple of the excerpts of why it is we do equalization, number one, and also why we do apportionment. And the apportionment is where we're tallying the taxable value for each unit of government that collects a tax within Oceana County, and that they are levying what they're allowed to levy. They can always levy less than what they're allowed to, but they can never levy more than what they're allowed to without going and getting a vote of the people. The way we get to our equalized value, though, and I wanted to cover that to let you know some of the numbers behind it. For residential property, we do a sales study. And so you'll see the page regarding county equalization sales study. You can see how many sales were considered valid sales in each unit or each township in the city of Hart. There were 897 valid sales used. And these are sales that were in the study period that we were required to use between April 1st, 2022 and March 31st, 2024. So it's not including sales that occurred after March 31st, 2024. During that same period of time, and this is where Anna comes into play, for this study, we actually processed 4,575 recorded deeds or documents. Out of those 4,575, we have to determine which are valid sales to be used. So that's where we got to the 897 valid sales out of the 4,575 deeds that were processed. What's important about those deeds is that even though they may not have been a valid sale, all of those recorded documents control who owns the property. And it might not have been a sale that was used in the study, but we still are, our responsibility is to maintain the ownership record of the parcels within the county. And so all these documents still have to be processed in order for us to maintain who owns the property. And we coordinate that with the treasurer's office. The treasurer works with the local units. We are then provided information from the local units to make sure that the mailing addresses stay as accurate as possible. And again, we have 30,388 parcels in our database that are maintained. The other type of studies that we do are equalization appraisal studies. Now, appraisal studies are studies in the agricultural, commercial, and industrial classes of property. You can see on that page how many parcels were actually included in the study of each class and by township. So we actually visited 369 agricultural properties, and this is just for last year. So this isn't a 2-year period. So this is just during last summer. We visited 258 commercial properties and 141 industrial properties. So overall, we actually, in the field, did 768 visits to properties. And I would like to thank all of our property owners. Catherine can probably testify to that. For the most part, the majority of the people are pleasant to deal with. We don't get, I guess, shooed off property very often. Catherine could probably give you an exact number, but it's not very many. We also, in order to do the agricultural study, we actually have to come up with what's called an economic condition factor, which applies a factor to the cost of buildings and the residential portion of a agricultural property, which is the home and accessory buildings. So what we do is, out of those 800 and some valid sales, we'll pick, we did 68 residential properties where we went out, we looked at how much land they have, we measured the houses, we measured any accessory buildings to come up with that economic condition factor. We don't use those appraisals on the residential property for the residential study because we're using sales for the sales study. Where this comes into play, though, is that it does develop a factor that gets applied to every house within that agricultural study. So it is a vital part of this overall. So overall, we've visited 836 properties. Kind of a general average. This is really statewide for most equalization departments. That either, if they contract out for this type of field work, it's anywhere from $100 to $125 per parcel is what you would typically expect to pay. And we used to contract out the agricultural, commercial, industrial studies, and I think the agricultural parcels were around $60 a parcel. The commercial industrial were $120 to $150 a parcel. So that average in there was around $100 a parcel. There's other types of studies. We could have a stratified or combined study. We have not had to do that. Where that would come into play, though, is if we have a single industrial property that would skew an individual township. And so if requested by the local assessor, we can do a stratified study where we specifically come up with a value on maybe a large industrial building, and then we give that its own ratio. And then we do various other industrial properties that might be smaller, but it has its own ratio. And that way the one single large industrial property doesn't overweight the study and force a change that maybe not be warranted on all the smaller industrial properties. What I've been doing up to this point are assessment roll audits. And so you can see, and I won't go through the whole list, but every year, after the local assessor completes their assessment roll and they go through their March Board of Review, there's certain reports that they are required to submit along with the backup of their database. When I reviewed their database, and I only had a couple that had to be returned, what we're looking for, what I'm looking for, is that their beginning numbers balance what they ended with last equalization. That cannot change. And we had a couple that got their beginning numbers off, and then I usually help them try to figure out how they got out of balance. The main item that I review is the L4021. The equalization department has a responsibility when an assessor increases or decreases a property. If it is not due to new construction or a loss of something that was demolished, then the increase or decrease is considered a market adjustment or an adjustment to the roll. It's that adjusted value that goes in the column. If you ever look at, if you look back at the L4023, you'll notice that on the starting ratio, there's then losses, and then there's an adjustment, And the adjustment is what actually changes the ratio. And then there's additions or new, that does not change the ratio. So new and lost does not change the ratio for a local unit. It's that adjustment. What I have to do is I go through basically 29,000 parcels on the report, and I'm looking at each line, and I'm looking to make sure that they do not have new when they're not supposed to, or lost when they're not supposed to, and that they have adjustment where it's required. If I find that an assessor has misplaced new or lost, and basically, I don't want to say circumvent, but because of what they did, they're coming up with a wrong adjusted value from last year. That's something that I then contact the local assessor and say, hey, you need to change this. They then have to fix it, resubmit their assessment roll, resubmit the reports. And we had, I think 4 units where I had, and when I say I found something, we're talking like 1 or 2 parcels out of 29,000 parcels. So it's not like a major thing, but it is something that gets done every year. The one thing that really helps us out a lot though is I do the same thing as a pre-M board or pre-March Board Review audit. I extend this to all the assessors that if they provide me with a backup of their database before they actually send out their change notices, I will do the same review. I found a lot of the things that needed to be changed before they actually finalized their role, which is why we only had a few things to change after the board, March Board Review met. And so it saves us from having to resubmit, and especially because these reports get submitted to the state by the local assessor now. Once they submit it, if there's a change, they have to then do an amended. And nobody likes to see, I mean, I do assessing units as well. I hate having to do an amended report because it means I did something wrong. Anyway, you can look through the things that we do. We review their splits that they've done to make sure that the taxable value, which is really, again, taxable value is not statutorily in my jurisdiction, but we do this as a courtesy and also as a protection for the taxpayers to make sure that when a split is done, the taxable value that gets allocated from the parent parcel to the children parcels that are being created is being done and allocated correctly, so that one or both of the people that are purchasing or owning the new split children parcels are not getting their taxable value changed erroneously to something that is either too high or too low. Too low obviously is hurting the local and all jurisdictions collecting tax on that taxable value. And if they allocate a taxable value that's too high, then they're hurting the taxpayer. And so we do double check that. We're also looking and at the any IFT parcels, which are the industrial facilities tax abated properties, to make sure that those get tagged and applied correctly so that they are taxed appropriately. We look for other items that are now part of the assessing audit, which is the new Assessing Reform Act. So we will help the assessor look for items that may get flagged during that audit, as far as if they have flat land values, that they have correctly calculated land values, and those ECFs, economic condition factors. Those are the big 2 that will cause a local unit to fail their audit from the state. And I already mentioned factors. We had no units that were recorded, had to get factored this year. And then as far as non-statutory functions that we do perform, the first one, I mentioned this before, the assessing. When a local unit requests the county to provide assessing, that is voluntary. The county does not have to accept an assessing contract, but when the city of Hart, their assessor, retired, I think 6-7 years ago now, we came up with an agreement where the city of Hart contracts with the county board of commissioners to provide assessing services. By statute, that makes me the assessor of record for the city of Hardin. And then we negotiated where the contract is then split, the county receives 1/3 of the revenue from that. So right now, their contract, I believe, is $36,000 a year for the assessing services. The county receives $12,000 a year for that, being that you have that contract. And then my company receives the other $24,000 a year for providing me as the assessor of record and the staff who provides office hours there on a weekly basis. The other item that is not statutory, but we provide, and that is the GIS. We believe it was 6 or 7 years ago, we initially brought the GIS in-house. We were contracted with Leah out in Traverse City. We brought it in-house and had a couple of employees that were maintaining the GIS, but when it became difficult to retain the employees in the office, that's when Dr. Sobey asked me to provide a contract to provide the entire department. We then also contracted out the GIS to Schneider Geospatial. They're the ones that maintain our parcel layers as well as the Beacon portal. So if you go online and do a GIS search, that's what basically I'm contracting with Schneider. And you can see the current annual fee that I pay is $13,548. So I pay that. So over the 3-year period, it's been $40,644. And that is to continue to provide the GIS for those. The other thing that got added to the GIS in 2023, I don't know if you recall, in 2022, I came to the board when we had an option to upgrade our flight opportunity to a 6-inch aerial imagery, which is twice as good as what the state was going to do for free. So they offered to do a 12-inch. The board, didn't want to upgrade to the 6-inch. But when I sent out a letter, there was enough interest. We actually had 13 of 17 of the local units willing to contribute $1,500 toward that upgrade. And so I paid the $25,800 to get the 6-inch, which if you look on our GIS website, you'll see the 2023 aerial is an option, as well as the, I think 2019 is there as well. And you can look at the difference between a 12-inch and a 6-inch. And how much clearer, and you can zoom in and actually see things. The reason why I decided to pay for that upgrade is we can use that. It gives us to determine, especially in areas for land where we can't get, it might be gated, we can't get to it. We can use the aerial to determine how many acres of woods, tillable area, and other items. So it's useful for the appraisal process, as well as just better aerial photography. I do make up some of this because we sell there's about 3 customers that buy the assessment data annually, CoreLogic, Black Knight, and Zillow, and they each pay $1,500 a year typically for an updated assessment information. And so that basically help offset the costs that I paid for the aerial photography. I also provided, just for your information, and again, I provided a list of other counties. A lot of them either are very similar in size, parcel-wise. Some are smaller, some are a little bit larger. These are their budgets that were provided either by the equalization director or some that I found online, and whether or not they provided GIS or not. And I provided the digital copy of the of this report. This only has this many columns. The digital report you have has about 8 times as many columns. So it has a lot more information that you can look at to really see what each of these counties provides for their department, and why some of their budgets are 600,000 plus. And obviously Oakland County is a $12 million budget. We're not Oakland County. So obviously, look at that, but you can see what different county equalization departments, services are, that they provide, what their, benefits are for their employees. And again, compare that to under a contractual agreement. I do provide, Blue Cross Blue Shield for the employees that need medical, medical, dental, and vision. We do a profit share, and I have a 401k plan, and BNB does a 4% match to the employee if they do a 5% contribution to their 401. So I think that compares, pretty well to other county plans, but I try to. It's basically one of the reasons why I think I'm able to keep the employees working for me, and so I'm not having to find new people all the time. Which is one of the problems that we were running into when I first started. Was people would get trained, and then they would get other better offers, and they would move on. And we were always replacing our staff downstairs. My wife is the director in Muskegon County. We call her office the training ground. She's constantly hiring new people, getting them trained, and then she loses them to other surrounding counties. So we've been able to avoid that with what we've been doing. So anyway, I just wanted to give you, let you know what it is we do, and hopefully you decide to stick with us going forward.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Good, thank you, sir.
I will say the 122 pages that were in our packet were a lot to read.
More detailed than you probably really
You
want
got
to read.
172
Did you
pages.
catch that comma that he missed in those pages?
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
I don't know why.
Surprised me. I don't see commas anymore.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Is Mr. Biard, consideration to appoint Scott?
I don't know how to pronounce that name either, so I'm not gonna butcher it either.
Carpathian.
Oh, sorry.
There we
Thank
go.
Say it again, because I gotta read it later.
Carsapian?
Carsapian.
It should be, he's a PhD, he was the superintendent of Cutwater Public School.
Well, regardless, this was a, recommendation that came from the Veterans Affairs for appointment to replace Tracy Blanger.
Any questions? Jessica, are you doing?
Oh,
I'm
no,
sorry.
we didn't change that, did
Didn't
we?
change that, I
I
was gonna say.
just,
Whoops,
Administrator's review for self-defense
Thought I changed
payment
that
and
already.
administrative report.
my apologies. The claims have been, provided for you. Are there any questions on any of those? They look like they were pretty straightforward. And then, administrative report, there was a report placed in your packet. I really don't have much more to add to that. We've been working on, paperwork for the, auditors coming up. FOIA requests that I opened my mouth and said we hadn't received any in a while, and then they start flowing in again, so, I've been working on those, but other than that, I don't have anything else. Transfer station scale's working well, that's coming in.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes, Mr. Walker.
I had a discussion with the administrator about the surplus furniture, and there is going to be a department head meeting in a couple weeks. And I asked her to bring up to the department head meetings what was in that surplus furniture.
Okay.
In case any of them wanted that surplus furniture. And then, if after there was, I think Michigan State requested something or asked something, we can go to those outside agencies that we partner with and let them know after our department.
Sure.
Look at it, and then anything that's left over, I don't think it has to come back to the board. I think the administrator should just get rid of
I
it.
concur.
Does anybody have any objections to the administrator just taking care of that?
No problem.
The drain commissioner did, she is taking one of the desks from, the building department for her new staff along with one of the chairs that, was in storage. Dave did provide me with pictures of all of the desks and file cabinets and everything, so,
Just deal with it.
yeah, we'll take care of it.
Great,
So,
Thank you, thank you.
all right. Moving on, any department head reports at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment, in regards to Ed's presentation. I've learned how to work very nicely with Ed over the years. We kinda had this, relationship in the beginning, it's like neither one of us understood each other. But I'm telling you, the staff that he has, and with his availability to my staff, and all kinds of things come up throughout the year when we're collecting the current taxes. Ed sets up my database, he didn't mention that, something that he does, for me, so 2 tax databases are set up for me. He makes it ready, so we're ready to balance with the, township assessors. And then throughout the year, we take care of the adjustments, so we know how much the local treasurer is there, is to collect. And then when Michelle Ennis left, the equalization department, we kind of took on current tax, they took on the deeds. So if you get a big legal description on a deed, we are not capable of doing that in the treasurer's office, and our equalization office does that. And Anna does a great job, easy to work with, customers are very pleased when they have conversations with her, and how she treats, the person coming into their office. So I get a little anxiety when I hear that it's out for bids, because things have gone very well, and helps our department to be successful. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you.
And if I may, Ed and I were talking a little bit before the meeting. The board does have the ability to pull that bid if you decide you don't wanna put it out for bid, that you just wanna up that contract with Ed, we can do that too, but it's at the discretion of the board. However, one of the things he did point out is that, he will not be doing the GIS, so we would have to take that on, and we can contract with the current people that he's using, or, have that discussion, so.
Think we need to talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. Any public comment this time for finance and administration? Oh, I'm sorry.
I can do public comment too.
Okay, sorry.
This is about Ed. So a couple of years ago, the Pentwater River Watershed wanted to do a mailing to all the people in the Pentwater River Watershed. And with Ed's help, we were able to go on the GIS system, working with Schneider down in Indianapolis. They did a great job. And we were able to actually design a parallelogram that actually identified all the property owners in the watershed. We were then able to basically put those property owners onto a label, a mailing label, and that basically the document that was mailed out to all those property owners was basically a survey. And the survey was about, I think we were close to about 40% return, which is really good. And as a result of that, we're going to be able to do a little bit more funding we have to find. But they'll be able to actually do a Pentwater River watershed management plan. So with Ed's help, we were able to get that done, and it was very simple. Now you go on the system, hits a couple of the drawing tools, won't go into all of that, but you're able to pop up all of the addresses on the property owners. And it's a remarkable tool that should be used for opportunities like maybe District 10 Health could actually do that with some of their areas for finding survey data and property owners and who you mail to. Because mailings are expensive, what, 75 cents now for a postage stamp, something like that.
Gary, the District 10 Health Department uses the Fetch system. It's a different GIS system.
Okay.
That they have.
But they could use the county because it's open. It's an open data piece. So,
Thank you.
Yep. One other thing I should say. Sorry. The good news is that the Community Foundation of Oceana County gave us a grant for parks for $4,830 to pay for some of the concrete work to be done at Cedar Point. That was approved by the board a couple of weeks ago, and they're very quick with their return, so we're really glad to get that. That'll help offset the cost there. And we just did file yesterday. We have a grant writer on our staff, on our board. John Wilson's done a marvelous job over the years of John, we need another grant. He goes, oh boy, I don't know if I can do another one, but he does. And he just submitted the Great Lakes Energy Fund, People's Fund, yesterday, so, we hope to get some money from that too. Thanks.
Any public comment this time for finance administration? Hearing none, we will adjourn the finance administration committee meeting and take a short break, before the regular board meeting starts.